Well, the NBA draft has now come and gone, and we want to break it all down with our Utah Jazz insider, Ben Anderson. Thanks for coming in studio and talking about this draft once again. Ben, this was pretty exciting, I feel like, considering the Jazz had that fifth pick, fans were maybe a little deflated. But I think after the draft, maybe there's a little bit of excitement and optimism here. What are your just overall quick take of the Jazz draft?
I think fans have to be relieved, right? You set up an entire season this last year for the Jazz without signing a bunch of free agents to lose games. And you lost games in hopes of drafting one of two or three players. And it was Cooper Flagg, it was Dylan Harper, and it was Ace Bailey.
Right.
And when you fell to 5 in the lottery, didn't think it was going to happen. You didn't think one of those players was going to be on the board. Almost universally, those guys were going to go 1, 2, and 3. And then because of all the pre-draft drama, which does happen, Ace Bailey falls to 5. So I think the Jazz really have to be thrilled that he was on the board. It's the type of upside swing you want to be able to make after a season like you just had. And then as we showed, you trade up to 18 to get a player like Walter Clayton. We talked about him last week. Clearly, that was a guy the Jazz had targeted. That was a guy they really liked and were happy to get him.
Okay, so let's dive into these picks a little bit. Because Ace is a guy, like you mentioned, he was considered a top 3 pick. He was able to be there at 5, but also a guy that it felt like maybe Utah wasn't his destination. At least that's the word that was out there. The Jazz went ahead and went with him anyway. Yeah,
and the rumor was, his agent had even told one team in the top 5, don't draft him. He will not report. Clearly, it wasn't the Jazz because the Jazz were comfortable drafting him. So he didn't want to go to Philadelphia. Too much talent there. No room for him to really become the man. And I wonder if Charlotte had some of the same issues. They've got a lot of young players, or if he just didn't like the setup of the roster. Didn't think there was going to be an opportunity to play. He's going to get a chance to be a star in Utah. I don't know if the Jazz are going to put the ball in his hands day one and say, go create, carry this big offensive load. Probably what's best for him is for that not to happen. They would be better to bring him along slowly, let him play off the ball. He's going to get 25 minutes a night. Make no mistake about that. But maybe he doesn't need to try and score 20 points a game. Do what the San Antonio Spurs did with the Kawhi Leonard and what the Indiana Pacers did with the Paul George. Come along slowly. Find your shots where they're available. Make them. You're going to get confidence out of that. And that's going to grow your game more naturally than just trying to force it and force it and force it. And that might end up being the best thing for him.
So Austin Ainge, after the first round, he said that this is kind of what they envisioned 2 weeks ago, was getting Ace and then Walter Clayton Jr., a guy they liked so much they were able to trade up a few spots to grab him.
Yeah, they said this was their dream scenario. Now, no team is going to say, well, we just had a terrible draft. So take it for what it's worth. Yeah. But truly, you get a very high upside player who, if everything clicks with Ace Bailey, really has a chance to be the second best player in the draft. And then Walter Clayton is one of these guys that gets overlooked because he's a little undersized, because he's 22 years old. We start to think, oh, well, maybe the potential's not there. And we undervalue what they're already doing. We undervalue that, he's going to shoot 40% from the three-point line in the NBA at some point in his career. He does star things. He shoots off the dribble, and that's one of the really hardest things to do. It's what turned Donovan Mitchell into a star. And he's got some of that already coming into the league. So this was a very successful draft for the Jazz. The first round was really pretty spectacular, and we'll see what they end up getting with John Tonji in the second round. But they added shooting, and I think you look at where Austin Ainge was coming from, looking over the Boston Celtics for the last 2 years. They were the most prolific three-point shooting team in NBA history. They won a title. I'm sure he said, let's figure out how to get more shooters in Utah.
Well, it feels like that's what they've done. I want to ask you also about Egor Demin. Obviously, we've kept our eyes on him throughout his college career at BYU. Not a bad spot for him. Brooklyn with the Nets. What do you think about that number 8 pick?
Yeah, I worried when he went number 8 overall that might be a little high, and the expectation was he was going to have to come in and score a lot, and I don't think he's going to do that. But then they followed it up by taking 2 other guards that are going to kind of share the ball handling responsibilities, including Nolan Traore, who's going to score a lot. That's a nice landing spot. All of a sudden, he doesn't have to do everything. He doesn't have to be the everything guard, which I don't think is his specialty. He can come in, he can get other guys involved, and they're going to bring him along slowly. And he's going to be a part of this big draft class. They're the first team ever to make 5 first-round draft picks in the same draft. So he's going to have an opportunity to find his rhythm, figure it out, which is what he did at BYU. And then by the time they got to the tournament, he was playing so spectacularly well. I think you're going to see a lot of that with Brooklyn as well.
Okay, so what would you say is next here for the Jazz? Obviously, Summer League's right around the corner now. What's the next step here?
Yeah, I think you look at some of the undrafted free agents that didn't get picked up in the second round on Thursday, and then where they go moving forward and build out that Summer League roster. But you've got an opportunity to extend Walker Kessler if you want to. There's going to be trade opportunities on the table. We know the Lakers are interested there. And then you've got to figure out what you're doing with John Collins and Colin Sexton.
Right.
Are you going to keep them? Are they going to be a part of the roster going forward? The nice thing is, you have until February to trade them if you want to hold on to them. But they're both expiring contracts, and I would expect they move.
Well, it seems like we've got an exciting offseason ahead of us. Exciting season to come in the fall as well. Can't wait for Summer League. Ben, Thanks for joining us throughout this whole draft process.
Been
Appreciate
fun.
it.
Appreciate it.